when that next election will come. And we had a bad news, yesterday, because Carney has his majority, spending a lot of money that we don't have. So that's creating inflation. They know that all these MPs who cross, I believe that they decided not to be a candidate at the next election, and they're doing that to have a better pension.
Crazy how fast everything has evolved and the restrictions that are coming.
They're on the social media, try to control what we are saying. In Europe or in the US, they're printing money, they're creating inflation. They don't want to fight the real issues. Have to do a tweet and asking Elon to look at it, but that's a reality right now. Canadians to be engaged, to have a revolution, because if you believe in something, I will ask you. I didn't thought that a day, in our country will pass a bill like that.
Welcome back, guys, to another episode of the Furious the Curious Show. I'm super excited to have Maxime Bernier back here on the show. We had him on a couple months ago, and he agreed to come back on. So, Max, thanks for being here. I appreciate it.
I'm very pleased to be with you. Thank you for having me.
Yes. How have you been since the election and everything went down, and you got the results that you got? What's been your focus? What have you been up to?
Yeah, I must say that the result of the last general election was not a good one for us. As that was not like a normal general election. It was like a referendum on who will be the best one to deal with President Trump, Polyev or Carney. And we didn't have the opportunity to have a discussion about, for example, mass immigration, knowing that 65% of Canadians are on our side on that. They want to have a moratorium on immigration like us. So we're not able to have these national debates. But and also at the same time, we in about maybe 85 ridings, we didn't have time to have a candidate in every riding. So that was not good, because if you cannot have a candidate, you can have support in that riding. So since that election, we did very well. I was traveling after the election, so we've met a lot of people. I can tell you that about 75% of our candidates will be with us at the next general election, and we are looking for candidates right now. So when that next election will come, and we had a bad news, yesterday, because Carney has his majority. So I believe that the general election will be only in 3 years. So, but that being said, the People's Party will be ready. We will have a candidate in every riding, and we'll be able to have a national discussion on very important issues for Canadians at that time.
Hmm. Is it in 2 years or in 3 years? Because I thought the election was a year ago, so it's every 4 years, isn't it?
Yeah. So it will be in 3 years. Yeah, 2029.
Okay. Yeah. Okay.
Yes.
What do you think of Carney's leadership in the last year, and what he's been doing in poaching some conservative candidates? I think there's 4 that crossed the floor now.
Yeah, so for me, it's undemocratic way to try to have a majority. And I understand that these MPs who crossed the floor did that for themselves. And actually, that is showing me that the conservatives and the liberals parties are about the same if you cross from the conservative to the liberals. So, and they're about the same on a lot of issues, deficit, mass immigration, not speaking about, for example, uh, uh, um, the deficit immigration, and also the equalization formula and all the money that the government is spending. So they were able to cross with the liberals, because Polyev on these issues has the same position than Carney. But for that government, I'm a little bit disappointed. I'm not sure if we will have a free trade agreement with the US. That was part of the election, and Carney said that he would be able to have a free trade agreement. I really don't know. We still have a couple of months, and that is important for the economic future of the country. And also, I thought that Carney, being more, a business guy, that he will manage the deficit better than Trudeau. And that's not the case. Actually, he's doing a bigger deficit than Trudeau. He's spending a lot of money that we don't have. So that's creating inflation. And But for us, we cannot do a lot. Now he has his majority, but we are there and we are ready to have these national discussions with Canadians.
Yeah. I haven't been in Parliament myself. You have. What are the different types of things that someone like Carney uses to convince candidates to cross the floor? Is it money gets allocated to their ridings? Is it like how do they convince? How does this work? You must have some ideas on the different things they offer.
Yeah, I think, we will see that in about a year when Carney will do his first cabinet shuffle, when he will change ministers and appointed new minister. So we'll see. But I believe that it's a position in his cabinet. It can be, being a parliamentary, being in charge of a parliamentary commission. And other kind of a position like that. And I believe that these MPs, they did that from themselves. And I believe also that they knew that they won't be re-elected, because as you look at the history, since the creation of that country in 1867, each time a member of parliament did cross to another political party, that person, that MP, was not able to be re-elected. And so they know that. So all these MPs who cross, I believe that they decided not to be a candidate at the next election. And they're doing that to have a better pension. Because if they have a position in the government, or if they have a role as a member of president of a parliamentary commission, their salary will increase. And for your pensions, it is the 4 best years of salaries that are counting for your pension. So they're doing that for themselves, and they don't have any, concern about their population. But it's a betrayal of the democracy when they're doing that.
Yeah. Bill C9 just got passed. What do you think about that and the effect it's going to have in Canada in the future? How soon do you think we're going to be seeing arrests under this bill, especially when it comes to religious freedoms?
Yeah, I, you know, I didn't thought that a day, in our country will pass a bill like that. And now it's in force. And now, I believe that the police and the Canadian RCMP, and they will look at us, and we are losing a lot of our freedom. And like you just said, pastor, a priest, maybe they can be harassed because of what they're saying. They had an exemption before. Now it's not the case. So if you do something on the internet and they don't like it, you can have the visit of the police, like they're doing in UK right now. So that's very concerning about our freedom of expression, and that's the basis of a democracy. If you cannot have debates, because somebody can complain to the police about me or about you on something that you said or wrote on social media. And now the definition is, it can be a hate speech if that person doesn't like what you said. So, but freedom of expression is there actually to allow discussion or speeches that you don't like. Freedom of expression is not there to protect the expression of things that you like. So that is a big precedent. We'll see what will happen. But for us, we are for individual freedom and personal responsibility. And we always defended the Charter of Rights and will do the same. So it's sad that that bill is in force right now.
Hey guys, quick interruption here on the podcast just to talk about my coaching. If you're a dad or a guy who feels like you're crushing it at work, things are going well, but you feel like you're a failure at home as a father, as a husband, or even as a Christian, that's exactly who I coach. That's very much my own story. I can relate to it a lot, and I've helped a lot of different guys to stop white knuckling it and to actually start showing up at home and in the rest of your life with integrity and to stop feeling like a failure in those areas. And so if you're interested in that, there's a link in the description below that you can check out, and we'll have a call and I can see how I can help you. No pitch, just an honest chat. Check that out. And otherwise, let's get back into the podcast. Yeah. Are you surprised personally, like how fast things have changed since, when you were in the Harper government and to where we are today? Like it seems from my perspective, which is going to be different than yours, just crazy how fast everything has evolved and the restrictions that are coming have come and I think will continue to get worse. How do you view it? Are you surprised by it, or are you kind of, were you expecting it?
No, I'm surprised by it because when I was elected, I was in Parliament for 13 years, elected under Stephen Harper in 2006 and until 2019. And, at that time, if you look at the speeches that I did, it was all about the economy. I was not speaking about the culture war that we are having right now. It's very different. Now, you have the government that is trying to control us. They did that during COVID-19, and they want to do that. For example, for us as a political party, is always very difficult to be in the mainstream media. For them, it's like we don't exist. They don't want to have the discussion that we are bringing in the public sphere, like immigration, like balancing the budget, like, no wars, like fighting for peace and prosperity. And they don't want to have that discussion. And I believe that they know maybe if we have more visibility, we'll grow faster. So, and now they're on the social media, try to control what we are saying. For example, on X, I'm shadow banned for the last year. I'm 333,000 followers for the last year. So I don't grow. And on Facebook, on all these social media, it's the same. So it's more difficult for us. That's why I have to travel a little bit across the country, and I will start to be back on the road this spring to meet our people, build the organization. And that's why, having that opportunity to speak with you, it's always important. And I'm very pleased to do that because, I can reach more people. But yeah, the state of our society right now, I hope that it won't be uh, worse than it is right now. But maybe I think economically it may be worse. We are in the beginning of a recession. All these deficit that we have, and other also countries like in Europe or in the US, they are printing money. They are creating inflation. They don't want to fight the real issues, like for example, ending the cartel in dairy, poultry, and eggs. That will have a big impact on the Canadian consumers when they're doing their grocery. We are paying twice the price for milk, poultry, and eggs if we compare that with the US. But the conservative and the liberals on that issue and many others, they're okay with that. They are with the cartel, and I'm with Canadians. So it can be more difficult economically. Uh, we'll see, but we know that we have the best solution for this country. We just have to be out there and to speak about it, and more people. I hope they will be able to support us when the time will come.
Yeah. I know a lot of my listeners won't agree with you on the dairy cartel, but I'll leave that for now. We chatted about that last time.
Yes, I
But
remember that.
I want to talk about the media and them not giving you airtime. I noticed that as well in this thing with Barry Neufeld getting fined $750,000 and him not getting interviewed by any media outlets at all. It goes directly against what journalism is and asking questions from all the sides and reporting all the different sides. And it seems cultural to Canada to have that. Like if you look at the United States, they'll still have the different people on. You know a lot of these people in the media sphere because you've been in politics for a long time and been on the big shows, and now they're not having you on anymore. Are they bought out? Is the government in the media? Like, why is this the case here? Like, why haven't the discussions been happening? Because it seems like that has been this way for a long time. Do you understand it?
But if I understand it, it is for me anti-Canadians because we used to have debates and we used to have different point of view in the mainstream media, and that's not the case anymore. And actually, when you have the government, the federal government that is giving money to mainstream media, the federal government is spending a lot of money in advertising in the mainstream media. A lot of these mainstream media, like the Global Mail or National Post, maybe if they don't have the subsidies coming from the government, they will be it would be very difficult for them to survive. So our position on that is very clear. The government must not give any money to the media, and if they're going bankrupt, they just have to go bankrupt. But I believe that doesn't help us. But also at the same time, the conservative and the liberals, they don't want to see us. For example, there's a commission at every election, the debate commissions. They're in charge to put the rules and the regulations for the national debates with the leaders at
Yeah.
every election. And they have a criteria, and we are able to be able to meet these criteria. But like they did at the last elections, they changed that a month before the election. And who is sitting on the board of these of that commission? That's former conservative MPs and former liberal MPs. So they don't want us, and that's part of the reality that we are living in. But
But
uh,
you must know these guys privately, I'm assuming. Like
oh yeah.
and you have contact with them, and when the cameras are off and you're not trying to promote the PPC like you're doing right now, what is in your private conversations, what is their reasoning? And when you say, John, like, come on, man, like, this isn't how we do things. We believe in the same fundamentals of freedom and sharing these things. Well, what do they say to you?
Oh, first, I must say that the last time that I had a discussion with a member of parliament, that was a long time ago, but I still know some of these MPs that are elected in Ottawa. Some of them did work with me when I was running for the leadership of the Conservative Party of Canada in 2017, 2018. And I can tell you that I know that they said that they like what I'm doing, but they don't want us to have any visibility because that's hurting their own party. Polyev is having a big control of his MPs, and they don't want to have me being out there and being more visible because that will have an impact on Polyev and his policies, and they don't want to have the discussion. The most important one is about immigration. They don't want to have that because they know to win, they need to have support on the big ridings where you have a majority of new immigrants who are there, living there, and they don't want to speak to just having that moratorium because it's not popular in some ridings, and they need these ridings to be able to win. So they don't like me. They don't want me. They don't. They like, for example, the best example of that, when I was running to be the leader of the Conservative Party of Canada in 2017 and 2018, at that time, I think we were 92 Conservative MPs. And I was first running. At the end, I was supposed to win. But I had a lot of support from the memberships of the Conservative Party of Canada. But I was able to have only 4 MPs who supported me at that time. Why? Because, for example, I was speaking against, subsidies to big corporations, and they were saying, Maxime, an MMP from Southern Ontario, and there's GM, and we're giving a lot of subsidies to GM, so I can support you because maybe I won't be elected. Privately, they really like my policies and my platform, but they didn't want to support me because they think, and a lot of them, that won't help them to be re-elected in their ridings. And my position on supply management was another example of that.
Yeah.
So they like, and that platform, it's about the same one. We created the People's Party based on the platform that I did run on during the leadership contest. And, but they don't want to have this discussion. For them, they think that they won't be elected if they're speaking like me, knowing that if you look at our policies, each policy, and you do a survey about our policies, a lot of them will have a big majority on our side. So they don't want to have competition. That's a fact.
Yeah. Yeah. You've been running the PPC, and I think since 2019, and where things are at right now, you're not going to have another election till likely 2029. Did you expect to be where you're at right now? And where do you see the future of the PPC? Because from my perspective, it's dead in the water. And I hate to say that because I actually like a lot of the things you stand for, and I don't want to give money to big corporations. I don't want to, we're aligned on a ton of different issues, and so, but I see very little of you in the media, and I assume then a lot of other Canadians are in the same spot, and it's very disheartening. But where do you see it?
Yeah, I must admit that it's very challenging right now for us because we don't have a lot of visibility. Actually, you're right about that, but also the fact that we had 700,000 people who voted for us in 2021 and didn't vote for us at the last election, and they went to the Conservative Party of Canada. And so I believe that these people who voted strategically in brackets to get rid of Trudeau, now they saw that it was not, it was not a winning strategy because they were not able to have a conservative government. And I believe, and our goal is to have these people back, these voters back with us. And some of them are disappointed with what's happening right now. So I will tell them, vote in line with your values. You'll have more chances to have what you want. So, and the fact, like we discussed before, that it may be worse in the next couple of years, economically, socially, and culturally, we are losing our country. I believe when, time are tough, people may be ready to look at a real alternative, and we will be there. So the goal for us is to have our candidates ready. That's why I said to the team, before the end of this year, we must have at least 80% of our candidates, and they will be able to start to door knocking maybe once a month or more than that if they want. So having our candidates, that's the first step. The second step is for us to raise the money that we need and put some money aside to be able to do a big splash in advertising couple of months before the election. And right now, if you look at the polls, we are back at around 4% nationally. So that was the score that we had in 2021. So I think that and also the fact that we are always, myself and our candidates, it's always the same platform. We are always, fighting for the same bold ideas. I believe that is giving us credibility, and you cannot buy credibility in politics. So we'll do that fight, and there's up and down, but also what is encouraging is what's happening in Europe and in other countries where Marine Le Pen, for example, in France, she may be the next president. You have Nigel Farage in UK. If you look at the Reform Party in UK and our platform, it's the same. And you have the other party in UK, the Restore UK in Germany. So these populist movements are growing. And here in Canada, we are a little bit late. And because of our electoral system, also first past the post, we don't have any proportionality in our electoral system. It is more challenging for us. But, our time will come. We'll see.
Yeah. So you were disappointed when Trudeau chose to drop the idea of leaving the first past the post system, because that would have benefited you a lot.
Absolutely, absolutely, and we are, arguing for that. It would be great to have that, but at the same time, I understand that if the two main political parties don't want that, it won't happen,
Yeah.
and I won't put too much energy to fight for that.
Fair enough. You said you were banned on X or shadow banned on X. You must know people that are connected with Elon and can fix this issue. Like I thought X was the platform where shadow banning didn't happen anymore. Can you speak to that at all?
Yeah, so I'm a little bit disappointing also because when the transaction happened and Elon bought Twitter, we were shadow banned on Twitter before, but we were able to grow. But now for the last year, and maybe I will have to do a tweet and asking Elon to look at it. But that's a reality right now. It's very disappointing, but we'll try to do something on that. Actually, where we have more visibility and we are not shadow banned, and the growth of the party on social media, it's on Facebook. Right now, we were shadow banned on Facebook for a long time. Right now, on Facebook, I'm doing a video or I'm putting something on Facebook. We have a lot of visibility and we are gaining also a lot of followers. So only at least on Facebook, it's encouraging.
Mm-hmm. Well, when you talk to Elon, tell him about my show as well, and I can have him on here.
Okay, I will.
What's happening in Canada right now that you think a majority of Canadians are not aware of because of the media and different things like that? If it's influence from China or different things, what do you think is something that a lot of Canadians are happening? It's really going to affect us in the future or already is now, but they just aren't aware.
Yeah, I believe what we discussed, the loss of our freedom, freedom of expression on social media, that's the law just passed. And a lot of Canadians, that was not part of a big national debates about that. So they don't know that, but they will realize that in the near future. So that's, I think that's important. The other thing is, that the federal government said, we have a big deficit, but it's only, if my memory is good, about 48% of our GDP. So, it's not like the US when the big deficit is 120% of the GDP. So they're saying, and the liberals are saying we are okay. But that's not the reality because, you need to add the deficit at the municipal level, provincial level, and federal level. And if you add all these deficits, we are the same taxpayers. I'm paying my tax in Montreal. I'm paying my tax in Quebec as a Quebecer, and I'm paying my tax at the federal level. But if you add all that, it's about 120% of our GDP. So the debt is huge with all these provincials and federal government. And I think the population right now don't realize that. They think that the government can save them, but that's not the case. The government won't save anybody. Actually, the government is the problem.
Yeah. Yeah, I think Canada is more poor than the poorest state per GDP. I think it's Alabama in the
Yeah.
United States, which is crazy. I want to ask a few things about Francophone and in Quebec. Recently, the Air Canada had an accident and two pilots died. And the first thing that Carney says is like, I can't believe that the CEO of Air Canada didn't make his comments in French. and we had recently an astronaut go into space with Artemis, and he made comments about that as well, that it was a French speaking astronaut. And for me on the West Coast, I'm like, what? Oh my goodness, why is this even being mentioned as a thing? You're a francophone, you understand the culture there and the influences and stuff like that. What is that? Why is that even being talked about?
Yeah, actually, I must say that it was a big debate in Quebec in French in the mainstream media, but it was the opposite debate. The debate that you had outside Quebec in English in the mainstream media over there was the reaction that you just had. Why, speaking about that when, we lost two pilots and two pilots in that accident, that must be the most important. And in Quebec, people were mad about that because one of the pilots was a francophone and it was only in French. But that is showing you that the concept that Canada is a bilingual country, it's only on paper and it's not the reality. So that's why, we had this backlash about that. But for me, the most important is the immigration. What's happening in Quebec right now and what's happening in Alberta. You have two provinces who are fighting to have more autonomy, and they cannot have more autonomy with the Liberals or the Conservative. And now you will have a referendum in Alberta. We will know that in the beginning of May, if they have enough signatures to have that referendum. I believe they will be able to have the threshold that they need. And if it's that, the referendum will happen this fall. And I know that people are frustrated over there. And same thing in Quebec. The question about Canada being a bilingual country or not in reality, that must not be the most important in our country right now. It must be the impact on immigration and the impact on the big government that is interfering in provincial jurisdiction. So in Quebec, we will have a provincial election this fall, this October. And I can tell you, the young, charismatic leader of the PQ, the independentist movement and political party, is ahead in the polls right now, and he may win. And he's saying, if I win, we will have another referendum. So that's important. But Poilievre and Carney are not speaking about that. Why Alberta is frustrated? Why Quebecers are frustrated? Because all these two provinces, they want to have a control over their destiny, and they want the federal government to respect the constitutions, and that's not the case. So maybe in 5 years this country won't exist anymore. That must be things that we must speak about, but no, it's like business as usual. Poilievre is taking for granted the vote in Alberta. He's not addressing the equalization money. He's not addressing all these issues that Albertans want. And so that's more important than we are a bilingual country and everybody must be bilingual.
Yeah. Okay. And do you think this referendum, if it happens in the fall in Alberta, do you think it'll be successful? I mean, it's never been successful before in Quebec, and the few times they've tried it. If this gets passed, like practically, what would this even look like? And what's the realistic opinion that you have on if it will go through or not?
But yeah, I was looking like everybody on the polls in Alberta, and I can see that between 25% and 30% of the population are ready to vote yes on a referendum on the separation. But that's before. We are not in a referendum campaign right now. And usually, if you look at the past, when the majority for the yes, when that happens, if they have a majority or near a majority, the day of the vote, usually that's going down because it's a reality check. So I don't know if they will be able to have 30 or 25%. So maybe more, maybe less. But just the fact that we have that debate again, and for the first time in Alberta, something is happening. And our position is to tell I will tell this Albertan, you have a good reason to vote yes. And if you vote yes, you'll have three options. The first one will have to have a new discussion and negotiation with Ottawa. And if you are successful there, it will be good for every province. Or, you want to be an independent country. If you have a majority, that will be one of your option. But for the first time in the history, I believe during a referendum, you'll have the US that will be part of that referendum. And contrary to what happened in Quebec two times, the Department of State in the US were always in favor of a united Canada. But now with Trump, I'm pretty sure that, the US will say, be independent, and after that, come with us, you'll be the 51 states. So that will be a very different referendum campaign. And the more the yes will have support, the bigger will be their position to negotiate a better deal or to go back to the deal that we had in 1867. So we'll see. But we need to create that debate just to show to conservatives and liberals that it is not working. And if you don't do something, we're going to lose this country.
Globalization doesn't seem to be working really anywhere. If you look at Europe, like the EU hasn't worked, and it just seems in general that it's not at least good for the people. I've kind of come more to the conclusion that Canada is so big geographically that that it doesn't seem to work here either, because we're giving so much money to Quebec here, especially in the West. Like, what is your opinion about just every province becoming their own country? I mean, that's just a hyperbolic statement, but it seems that long term it's better if we actually give more power to smaller areas and we can just represent ourselves better.
Yeah, so you're absolutely right about that. But if you read our constitution, that is the solution. Going back to the constitution that the fathers of this country wrote in 1867, because right now you have the federal government that is interfering in healthcare. They have a program, dental care, they have a daycare program, they have all these programs that are under provincial jurisdictions. So you must cut out that. So if you go back to the constitution and you respect the constitution, every province will be happy. It won't happen. That will be, Quebec will have more independence, Ontario and all these provinces. But now you have a federal government that is saying to these provinces, we know best what is good for you, and we will impose that on you. The preoccupation in BC are not the same of the preoccupation in Quebec. So why the federal government will legislate on, for example, natural resources when it's provincial jurisdictions? So if you go back to the Constitution and if you respect the Constitution, you won't have any constitutional crisis. And also, you may add on the constitutional crisis, as you may know, at the Supreme Court of Canada 2 weeks ago, there's a bill over there, the Bill 21 coming from Quebec, and the provincial government in Quebec and also in Alberta and in Ontario, they are using more and more often the non-understanding clause. That's the clause in the Constitution saying, we passed that legislation, not understanding the Charter of Rights, because we don't trust you judges, woke judges, and we want to decide what is good for our province. And now you have the federal government that is arguing in front of the court, saying that, the provinces must not be able to use that clause anymore. But, that was a compromise and during the negotiation in 1982. And, I like that clause because it's a sovereignty of the parliament. And yes, if a parliament is using that clause too often, at the next election, they can go and lose power. So it's important to keep that because it's a sovereignty of the parliament and the National Assembly in Quebec or Legislative Assembly outside Quebec. And now the federal government is saying, no, you cannot do that anymore. So all that will bring another constitutional crisis about it. And these government are doing that right now for two reasons: because the federal government is interfering in provincial jurisdictions, and because we have woke judges that are not judges anymore, that are activists, leftist activists.
Yeah, yeah. I'm unfortunately not hopeful for that case being one on the side of the provinces, but on the side of the government because of the judges that are in place there. But I guess we will see what happens. AI is, of course, exploding in the world right now. How do you see AI changing and affecting Canada? And any thoughts on that?
Yeah, I'm not afraid about it. That's a reality. More and more people are using it. It can be dangerous for a politician like me. You can have, a fake Maxime Bernier that will say something that it's not true. They can do videos. That's the part that I don't like, because, you need to be aware of that. And it's so easy to do a video without your consent about you on something, and that would be your face and your voice and all that. But that being said, that's a very important technological changes that is happening. But during the history of our of the civilization, that's happening. And the tough time can be for a couple of years, but the adaptation will be there. And I believe that at the end it will be at our benefit. But we must be aware of that, and we must look what's happening, and we'll see. But I don't think that that will change, for worse, what's our society. I believe it would be a plus. But we need to manage that. We need to look at it, and being sure that we have the right legislations that will put in place the right legal framework for that. And maybe later we'll have more ideas what to do to be able to assimilate that technology better.
Yeah. The U.S. has, of course, invaded Iran, and they're at war with them right now. What's your take on that whole thing? Because it really surprised me when Trump campaigned so hard on not going to war, and he had people like Tulsi Gabbard selling shirts "No war with Iran." Like it was it was a huge push, and they were saying Kamala Harris is going to go to war. Now he's there, and I know a lot of young Republican males were very supportive of Trump because he was going anti-war and saying we're going to spend this money in the United States on infrastructure, on education, on making things better. And now you're there, and it's like I was blown away by it, and it really made me think, like, is this electoral systems we have in the West, are they actually real anymore? Or are there powers much bigger than we know about that are driving things? What's your perspective on that? On the U.S. going to war with Iran, and more just like do the votes matter?
You're right about that. I'm like you a little bit on that. I was a huge supporter of Trump when he was elected, and in the beginning of his mandate, he did very great thing on the woke ideology and all these the fact that a man he can be a girl, and a girl can be a little boy, and all these crazy woke leftist radical ideology. He was fighting, and he did fight against that. So he had very good position. And yes, I really enjoy what Trump was saying during the campaign. That Trump was, my Trump. He was speaking for peace, non-interventionist, because that's the position of the People's Party. Non-interventionist. We need to put our country first and Canadian first, and the war in the Middle East, it's not our war. And in Ukraine, it must not be our war. I was the only leader saying we must not spend money and giving money to Ukraine. But the conservative and the liberal did that, and were okay with that. So I really like that Trump during the campaign. And like you, I'm very disappointed about what's happening. But I'm looking at that, and Israel has a lot of influence. I believe so, and they're giving a lot of funding to politicians in the U.S. We'll see what will happen, but I wish that they can stop that war as soon as possible, but that may hurt the Republican Party in the mid-term election, and that's for me that's not a good news. But I don't like the Trump of today. I prefer the Trump that was for peace. And he said during the campaign, I will stop the war in Ukraine the first day when I'll be elected. Didn't do anything, and he delivered big speeches about nation builder and building and all that. That it must not be the role of the federal government in the U.S. So he's doing the opposite, and for me, it's disappointing.
Yeah. Yeah. Why do you think in Canada they've given so much money to Ukraine? Who's driving that? Like who benefits?
But actually, that's the for the politicians. We have a very huge Ukrainian community out west, and they're very influential in a couple of ridings. And I believe that they did some polling and focus group, and also, the narrative that was like the narrative during COVID. If you're not for Ukraine, you're for Russia. So, because I said it's not. We must not be part of that war. We must not give any money or ammunitions to Ukraine. Mainstream media, they did cover me at that time, and they said that I was pro-Russian and pro-Putin. That's not the case, but then answering your question about why the conservative and why also the liberals, they were following, these other leaders in Europe, and they think that Putin will, after that war in Ukraine, he maybe go more out west. I don't believe that. Putin was very clear about that, and he said that these territories were under the jurisdiction of Russia long time ago. These people over there spoke Russian, and so he wanted to conquer them and that territory. I believe that that's a proxy war, and that's still a proxy war between the U.S. and Russia, and we must not participate on that. But we are.
Yeah. Yeah, it's awful. I don't think people realize how many people are still dying there every day. Over 250,000 Russians, or at least mercenaries and Russians. 50,000 Ukrainians. I think it is. I could be not wrong on those numbers, but every day it's awful. I know in Europe that there's talks of the draft being implemented in certain countries like Germany, and which it blows my mind that those conversations are happening now. What do you think the chances are that happens in Canada and that the government institutes a draft here? Have you thought about that at all? Do you think that's on the forecast?
I hope not, but I can tell you if we have a discussion about that, we'll be the first one to say no to that. Uh, I don't think that conversation will come here in Canada. Maybe I'm wrong, but our position is clear on that. We are against it for sure.
Hmm. Okay, I know we're out of time here. Last question: What can do the individual Canadians do that are listening to this conversation? I know you want people to vote PPC and support your party, but beyond that, because I think a lot of Canadians are feeling apathetic and think, you know what, there's nothing I can do. I'm just going to go do my work, spend time with my family, and just let it go. And what I say or what I vote isn't going to make a difference. Can you speak to that apathy and the feelings that a lot of people have?
Yeah, I'm not asking people to vote for the People's Party. I'm asking them to be informed, to look at what's happening. Don't take your news only with the mainstream media. And more young people, are not following the mainstream media anymore. Yeah, I hope that they will be able to go and listen to some podcasts and your podcasts and other podcasts. So be informed. And when the time of the election is coming, take the time to look at the platform of different political parties. I understand that people will take more time when they want to buy a new car. They will look at all these options and they will take a lot of time to choose the right one for them. They're not doing that during the election, and they're listening to news and the slogan. So I hope that more people will be able to inform themselves when the election is coming or before the election, and have a vote with what you believe. And maybe you think, oh, if I'm supporting that party, they will change. I cannot trust these politicians. politicians. They are all the same, and they have a point like that. When you see, politicians crossing the floor to another party when you voted for them and for that party, I can understand that frustration. But look at these politicians, look at what they were saying 5 years ago, 2 years ago, and what they're saying today, and pick the one that you think that is the best of the worst. And if you vote in line with your ideas, all time will come. To do a peaceful revolution, we need only 20-25% of the population that is well informed and will speak about what they want, and that will start a revolution. So we don't need 100% of the Canadians to be engaged to have a revolution, because if you believe in something, I will ask you, have the courage of your conviction. If you want changes in the political system or in our society, if you believe in something, passion and conviction, don't hesitate to speak to your friends and to your families about what you think, and try to express your point of view politely, but express your point of view. Don't be silent, because what is the goal if you have the best ideas for yourself and your family and your country, and you keep that for yourself? So be part of the change, be part of the movement, and participate in changes. And these changes will happen. It's a question of time. So, and I know that if you look at the news, it can be very disappointing what's happening. But I believe that people are intelligent, and they just need to be out there and express their point of view, because you must remember, politicians are doing politics by survey and focus group. So if they know that you are able to influence people around you, people in your riding, they will try to have the best position to please you. So be out there, express your point of view, and I think that we'll have a better a better country and a political system.
Yeah. Max, thank you very much for taking the time. I really appreciate it. I know you got a lot of other things to do as well, so thank you again. And if you do come out on your trip this spring to the West Coast, let me know. We'll put on a live event, and you can talk to a lot more voters directly and share your views, and people can make their own decisions. So thank you again.
Yeah, but yeah, actually, that would be fun. We can do something, and you can open the line, or you can answer questions from your viewers or ask them in advance. And so I keep that in mind when I'll be out west. I'll speak with my team, and I'll let you know. That would be fun to do something in person.
Awesome. Thank you
Have a nice
again.
day. Thank
Yeah.
you. Bye-bye.
Cheers, Max.
Bye.
Hey guys, if you enjoyed that episode and were blessed by it, would you be willing to support the show? That would help a lot in creating more content, improving the quality of the content, putting the production value, getting more guests on, and me being able to spend more time and energy towards it. So if you're interested in doing that, you can click up here and it'll take you to a support page. But you can also subscribe to the podcast by clicking over here and doing that. Thanks again for listening, and I'll catch you on the next one.